made its final peace proposal. John Scally suggests that Hanoi may have responded by deed to the president's peace offer. Marlene Sanders examines the underlying racial and religious tensions in New York school strike. And guest commentator Maria Manis gives her version of the ideal president. Now, here is Frank Reynolds.
Good evening. In the words of an American spokesman at the Paris peace talks, there was nothing encouraging in today's session with the North Vietnamese. There had, of course, been hopes that the Hanoi delegation might today announce some move or make some response that could lead to an end to the American bombing of North Vietnam. But that did not happen today. The North Vietnamese repeated their charge that the Saigon government is just a puppet regime of the United States, and American Ambassador Averell Harriman challenged the right of the National Liberation Front to speak for the people of South Vietnam. After today's meeting, Ambassador Harriman told newsmen there would be another meeting tomorrow, but later it was said this was just a slip of the tongue, and the next session will be held as scheduled next Wednesday. So the speculation about a bombing halt remains speculation. And in the absence of a response from North Vietnam, the question now becomes, what does the United States do next? For a report on the president's attitude, here is ABC White House correspondent Bill Gill.
President Johnson's position today is best described as one of fatalistic patience. He had hoped for a response to his de-escalation proposals at today's Paris peace meetings. Now again, he is prepared to wait, but only for a reasonable time, probably another week at the most. In plain language, Mr. Johnson has now played his trump card in those Paris negotiations. He's gone the practical limit, in his opinion, in offering a mutual de-escalation package plan, complete with face-saving suggestions for Hanoi. If these offers are shunned, then President Johnson will pursue the one acceptable alternative. Determined to either achieve agreement with the enemy or to leave office with an overwhelming military advantage, Mr. Johnson would reluctantly resume bombardment of troop installations, supply depots, and enemy infiltration routes, all within the boundaries of his March 31st speech, but with an intensity not known in the past. There is every reason to believe that current efforts to gain a settlement agreement will prove to be Mr. Johnson's last such concession. And if it fails, the net result will be distasteful to Washington, but it will be disastrous to Hanoi. This is Bill Gill, ABC News at the White House.
It is a fact that military activity in South Vietnam has tapered off in the last 10 days. Though whether this means Hanoi is deliberately de-escalating the war or merely regrouping its forces for possibly yet another assault is not known. And that, of course, is the crucial question that President Johnson insists must be answered. But has Hanoi already answered, by deed if not by word? Here is ABC's diplomatic correspondent, John Scally.
As last week's optimism begins to fade, it raises the question, is President Johnson waiting for a signal from Hanoi that will never be more evident than it is today? Reports flowing into Washington now include these important facts. In the past few weeks, the enemy has pulled 60 battalions out of South Vietnam, far more than he's ever withdrawn at one time before. There are now no enemy main force units to be seen anywhere in the northern third of the country, all the way to the furthermost reaches of the demilitarized zone. American dead, virtually all the result of our own attacks, have averaged 8 a day for the past 10 days, as compared to 53 killed a day during the first 6 months of this year. Perhaps even more significant, after months of pouring up to 30,000 troops a month into South Vietnam, the enemy has reduced infiltration to the point where it's expected he'll move only 2,300 a month into the battle zones during the next 2 months. If all these troops had been withdrawn to rest and refit prior to a new offensive, why isn't Hanoi taking urgent new steps to rush reinforcements to refill their depleted ranks? Enemy forces ringing Saigon have now pulled back to the point where the nearest is 50 miles away. General Abrams' headquarters in Saigon insists there is a military explanation for all this. But the question confronting President Johnson is, has Hanoi started to respond to his plea on the ground by deed? And is it indispensable that the enemy tell us in so many words exactly what he is doing? In other words, is it possible that while Washington is waiting for Hanoi's answer, Hanoi believes it's already answered and is waiting for President Johnson to act? This is John Scali, ABC News, Washington.
Although the level of military action in Vietnam has gone down, American artillerymen and jet pilots killed more than 200 enemy troops in the last 2 days without the loss of a single American. Yesterday, Marine patrols spotted enemy forces in the open heading in the direction of Da Nang, some 35 miles away, and about 150 North Vietnamese were killed by shells and bombs. Today, nearly 50 of the enemy were killed in the same area. And again today, American planes struck at enemy supply routes in North Vietnam. In a moment, the Vietnam War and the campaign.
Prepare yourself for a little shock and some good news if you ever suffer from acid indigestion. This little tablet soothes and cools acid indigestion so effectively, it's hard to believe. It contains one of the most effective medicines ever discovered for acid indigestion. In tests on people at a famous medical center, it neutralized burning stomach acid faster and longer than every leading pill and liquid tested. It worked so well, it's hard to believe. Prepared for a little shock. It's Tums, the medicine that's hard to believe till you take it. Tums, now in peppermint and 4 more flavors.
Campaigning in Michigan today, Richard Nixon charged that Vice President Humphrey is inconsistent about a halt to the bombing of North Vietnam. Nixon said Americans would question the peacekeeping credentials of a man who, in Nixon's words, would rather switch than fight. Well, hecklers threw sticks, stones, and names at George Wallace in Youngstown, Ohio today. This was the 3rd straight day that Wallace has been the target of a variety of objects, ranging from eggs and an apple core to tomatoes. ABC's Sam Jaffe was there today.
During Wallace's hour-long speech, police had to break up several groups of anti-Wallaceites. Several demonstrators were hustled away. When Wallace started to talk about a peaceful solution to the Vietnam problem, he was pelted with stones and fruit. One hit the former governor in the face.
We are in Paris at the moment, and I sincerely hope and pray that we have an honorable negotiated peace in Paris, that the American servicemen can come home. But it doesn't look like that they are negotiating in good faith, but I pray that's not the case. But I want to tell you, we're not going to stay in Vietnam forever. We're not going to allow hundreds of American servicemen to be killed every week in Southeast Asia. All right. That's right, throw something else. You're a real fellow throwing things. That's right. You better throw them now, because you're not going to throw any after November 5th, I can tell you that much.
In a moment, a far different reception for Vice President Humphrey in Texas.
How long since you fixed an Irish stew? Mixed beef, potatoes, vegetables, and accent. Shouldn't you paying a pretty penny for food these days? Well, 'tis accent that gives you all the flavors you pay for, because accent wakes up the sleeping flavors in foods. Serve up an Irish stew, but don't be forgetting the accent. Accent wakes up the real Irish in Irish stew. Anything else should be fixing, too.
Village Inn. Great new rice with a wild streak of flavor. Sturdy beef rice, hearty companion to Sunday roast. Herb rice, wisely seasoned. Or Spanish rice, bright with sweet red peppers. Put wild fancies into plain cookery. Village Inn. 7 great new rices with a wild streak of flavor. From Accent, the flavor people.
Some of his supporters are referring to Vice President Humphrey as a miracle worker for apparently patching up the differences between 2 rival factions of Texas Democrats, one group headed by Governor John Connally, the other by Senator Ralph Yarborough. Both Connally and Yarborough are observing a temporary truce in support of the vice president, giving the Humphrey camp new hopes of overtaking Mr. Nixon's lead in Texas. Today, from another symbol of Texas unity, the Alamo, ABC's Ted Koppel sums up the impact of the two-day tour on the Humphrey campaign.
It may be that Texas will do for Hubert Humphrey what West Virginia once did for John Kennedy. It's not very likely, but then politics is sometimes described as the art of achieving the impossible. And in a brief 24 hours, tens of thousands of Texas Democrats have started a new spark of optimism shooting through the Humphrey campaign. One of the gloomiest aspects to this campaign over the past few weeks has been the general understanding that the National Democratic Party is badly split. That may be a seasonal malady within the National Party. Among Democratic circles in Texas, it's a permanent affliction. The rivalry between Senator Ralph Yarborough and Governor John Connally practically defies comparison. Custer was on better terms with Chief Sitting Bull. But there they were yesterday, Yarborough and Connally, in Fort Worth and Waco, Dallas and Austin, sitting on the same podium, supporting the same man. One highly placed Texas official told me that it took Humphrey's campaign manager, Larry O'Brien, a full week of arm twisting to bring the union about. And even then, it was only the overriding fear of a Republican victory in Texas that caused the political hatchets to be buried for the time being. As far as the voting public is concerned, Texas Democrats are united behind a common cause, Hubert Humphrey. And he may just have enough support now in Texas to carry the state. Certainly, help is being rushed in from every quarter. And if little children with symbolic yellow roses aren't enough, you bring on the First Lady. Every effort is being expended on this psychological blitz to convince Texas Democrats that their leaders are, in fact, united behind Hubert Humphrey. The campaign day yesterday lasted 19 hours and 7 full-dress speeches covering 5 Texas cities. The spirit of harmony peeled through the ranks of the party from its elder statesman down to its young Prince Regent, President Johnson's grandson, Lynn.
Kiss now. You see his jacket on, Dad? The Vice President, can you turn it?
This today was the climax of the Texas swing on ground that is hallowed to every Texan. For it was here at the Alamo that the early frontiersmen scored the moral victory that eventually led to statehood and independence from Mexico. And it is here, too, that Hubert Humphrey is making the stand that he now believes will carry the state and its 25 electoral votes in November. This is Ted Koppel, ABC News, with the Humphrey campaign in Texas.
In a moment, racial and religious antagonisms and the New York school strike.
This is a molecular model of poly 1,4-cyclohexylene dimethylene terephthalate. How about that? And I'm Joanna Barnes here to tell you what this unique molecule of Codel polyester fiber means in carpets. It's so special, it's patented.
Every room in your house comes alive because carpets of Codel bounce back beautifully. Even a house full of kids can't keep Codel fiber down. That's why Codel is the fastest growing carpet fiber.
If you can't remember the name Codel, ask for poly 1,4-cyclohexylene dimethylene terephthalate.
We also make 2,2,4-trimethyl-1,3-pentane diol monoisobutyrate.
But that doesn't go in carpets.
Codel fiber has bounced back. Built-in.
Count on Codel, a member of the Eastman Kodak family.
New York is a big city with big problems today. 22,000 policemen continue a work slowdown in a demand for more pay. They were joined today by 10,000 city firemen demanding more money. And the city's sanitation men who pick up the garbage also are seeking new salary negotiations. But in many ways, the deadlocked teachers' strike is the city's most serious problem. The dispute started months ago when the Negro and Puerto Rican School Board of an experimental school district in Brooklyn tried to transfer 83 teachers, 82 of whom were white, out of the schools in their district. Now Mayor John Lindsay concedes that the disagreement has gone far beyond the issues of job security and community responsibility. The mayor and many other observers see a deep-rooted racial and religious division coming to the surface.
It has, in the last week, degenerated into intolerable racial and religious tension. Black extremists have shouted anti-white and anti-Semitic epithets at teachers. White teachers have shouted racial epithets at parents, non-striking teachers, and at children.
The mayor's words exposed what has been boiling below the surface: racism. Most of New York's teachers are white. The majority are also Jewish. When the strike is finally over, they will once again have to work in the black community, whose attempts at self-government they have repulsed. What of the damage done by words hurled at picketing teachers by some blacks? Words like these:
Heil Hitler, Jew bastard. Hitler didn't finish enough of you people. We'll complete the job. Along that nature.
Many of the militants have begun a situation where they have called the teachers white pigs, have brought into it the point of anti-Semitism.
The second act of the new Board of Education was to approve courses in race hatred to be given at Junior High School 271, where the Board of Education will be paying for a course on revolution to be given by Mr. Ferguson, who is now in jail for conspiracy and the attempted murder of moderate civil rights leaders, and another course on how to organize demonstrations by Mr. Sonny Carson of Independent Brooklyn Corps.
Mr. Shanker, I'm sure, is just using this, and I think before this, and there's one other thing that disturbs me most, that he have brought a racial thing into the picture.
The children listen as their elders exchange increasingly bitter words. The striking teachers charge parts of the black community with inflaming hatred of whites and encouraging anti-Semitic hatred.
I'm anti-anything that's anti-black, so if that includes anti-Semitic, then I'm with that too.
There have been anti-Semitic remarks made. I have heard them. I cannot control everyone's tongue. But we don't approve of them. We are not anti-Semitic. Our governing board does not approve of anti-Semitism. But we have a group out here. It's an all-white group, and they're accusing us of racism. And I'm disturbed to think that our children must be trusted to people who are conducting themselves like the teachers are here. I'm very disturbed.
The union is mainly, I feel, opposed to black and Puerto Rican communities controlling money and policy. They just don't like us. When we become so that we can control money and power and policy, we will have power, and they realize that they don't want us to have power.
Blacks are controlling education in the experimental schools. The teachers' union says racism is being taught inside. But there are many sympathetic whites who oppose the teachers' strike and who support efforts of blacks at self-determination.
I think I blame the institution of white racism in this country. I don't think that any one person or any one group is responsible, but the whole system of racism has made people completely irrational about their racist feelings.
The children have been in school very little this fall, but they have been learning. They have learned about racism. They have seen teacher pitted against parent, white against black, black militant against Jew. It's a bitter lesson to learn. Marlene Sanders reporting from New York.
Late today, there was a brief flurry of hope that some sort of a settlement might be achieved when the suspended local school board offered to return 79 of the ousted 83 teachers to regular teaching assignments. But that proposal, along with other proposals submitted by the mayor and the Board of Education, were rejected tonight by the striking teachers' union. In a moment, a report from Mexico City on the Olympic Games.
You're always tired. Always tired.
I wish I knew why.
It could be iron-poor, tired blood. You may need Geritol.
The great majority of tired people don't feel that way because of iron-poor blood, and Geritol won't help them, but millions do have iron-poor blood, and you could be tired for that very reason and need Geritol. Just 2 Geritol tablets give you twice the iron in a pound of calf's liver. Geritol iron enters your bloodstream fast, carrying strength throughout your body.
Honey, you're like a new woman.
Geritol really works.
For tired blood, take Geritol and feel stronger fast. This is Ralph Bellamy. Your health.
Honey, it's 3 a.m.
I can't sleep.
When simple tension keeps you awake, take Somulex as directed for 100% safe sleep.
Take Somulex tonight and sleep safe and restful. Sleep, sleep, sleep.
Take 2 Somulex tablets and sleep.
The United States Olympic Committee today is investigating reports that some American athletes have accepted money from equipment manufacturers in violation of amateur regulations. If the charges are confirmed, the guilty athletes would be suspended and any medals they won in the Olympics would be forfeited. The Olympics has brought more than athletic games to Mexico City, as we see in this report from ABC's Chris Schenkel.
This is downtown Mexico City. The streets are jammed with traffic, sidewalks packed with people. For the Mexicans, the Olympics are the opportunity to see magnificent decorations, colorful flags and special displays in stores and government buildings. For the government, it's a chance to show the world Mexico is no longer a small and backward nation. The Mexicans parade through the streets and watch incredible traffic jams while police frantically try to make some order out of disorder. This chaos turns into an ominous silence at the University of Mexico, only 20 minutes from downtown. The school, one of the largest in the world, has been closed for more than a month as a result of massive student demonstrations. The students have declared an unwritten amnesty, but their leaders say protests will resume after the Olympic Games end. The only fighting sanctioned by the Olympic Committee is boxing. George Foreman is a favorite to win a gold medal. A 19-year-old Californian, he's the heavyweight contender for the United States. Yesterday, he scored a knockdown over Alexis of Romania. Watch the knockdown again. He bloodied Alexa badly in the third, and the fight was then stopped. So, as the athletes compete, the Mexicans gaily mob the streets and the students wait. This is Chris Schenkel in Mexico City.
ABC's coverage of the Olympic Games will continue early this evening, and at 10 o'clock, 9 Central Time, there will be a full hour of highlights. A Vatican spokesman today reaffirmed the Roman Catholic Church's opposition to the marriage of Jacqueline Kennedy to Aristotle Onassis, thus in effect disagreeing with Cardinal Cushing's statement of yesterday that Mrs. Onassis has the right to marry whomever she wished. In a moment, guest commentator Maria Manas offers us her concept of the ideal president.
When some folks taste Green Giant brand Le Sueur peas frozen in the new butter sauce that clings, they say,
My, these are delicious. They taste even better than ever.
or they say,
That's the old going in there, giant baby!
of course, the reason is the new clinging butter sauce doesn't run off the peas. Just for old time's sake, here's what used to happen.
I remember that.
Now look, the new sauce clings, so you get peas and butter on the same fork.
That's the old going in there, giant baby!
They're still the giant same little baby early peas frozen in the flavor-tight cooking pouch. But now they have a new butter sauce that clings. So try Green Giant Le Sueur brand little baby peas and all his other good vegetables now frozen in the new butter sauce that clings. And you'll say,
My, these are delicious. They taste better than ever.
or you'll say,
That's you going in there, giant baby!
ho ho.
We continue tonight our series of guest commentaries on the ideal president. Tonight's contribution is from Maria Manas.
When Eisenhower was president, they said that much of his great popularity stemmed from his father image. He was Dad. He knew best. We could jump in his lap and be safe. Then John F. Kennedy came along, part lover, part husband, part knight. I'm speaking as a woman, of course. And if Robert Kennedy had been allowed to become president, he might have been our brother, younger or older. Now, I'm not sure what we want in a president. An entire generation has grown up presumably scorning their fathers, and adult male voters might not appreciate either a husband or lover in the White House. What we need, certainly, is that rare thing, a man for all seasons. Young enough to understand and foster the best aspirations of our youth, mature enough to be able to impose discipline and even sacrifices on us all. It would mean a man of conscience, permitting no single group to deter him from his belief in right. It would mean a man of compassion, unable to tolerate oppression or injustice towards any citizens in the nation. This man for all seasons would have to be a man for peace, a healer, never a divider, a builder of bridges and not of missiles. He should be a man who knows that our greatest defense is the spirit and the strength of a healthy society. These are basics. As a footnote, an ideal president should not only mean what he says, but say it well. He should have dignity of presence, a sense of humor, and, well, fill in the picture yourself and see if it fits anyone you know. This is Maria Manis.
Tomorrow, guest commentator James J. Kilpatrick offers his views on the ideal president. That's tonight's news and comment. I'm Frank Reynolds. Good night.
Monday through Friday, in color, the ABC Evening News with Frank Reynolds. ABC's coverage of the Olympic Games will continue early this evening. And at 10 o'clock, 9 Central Time, there will be a full hour of highlights. This has been a presentation of ABC News.